Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning into the show. I'm your host, the M to the J to the, you already know how it goes. So as you can tell from the title, today we're going to be going into part 2 of the top 10 Queen of Screams. So now in this episode, in this segment, we're going to be going into the top 5, and the ranking of Queen of Screams. So who is going to be in the top 5? I'm interested to know who's going to be number 1, who's going to be number 2, who's going to be number 3, who's going to be number 4, who's going to be number 5. We're going to find out right now. So I guess you guys know my rules, my bases. I base my rules and my judgments and decisions on multiple criteria. So we're talking about, of course, the vocals. Then we also talk about the presence that was given to us as far as in the role in the character. We also go by the career, the overall career. So this is how I base my decisions and come up with my judgments. And I like to be fair and be non-biased, okay? So just so you guys know that from part 1, but now when we go into this top 5, all of the top 5 leading actresses, I am huge fans of, okay? So before any of the comments get to going, okay, and you may disagree or agree, before, you guys need to know that I'm a huge fan of every last single one of these leading actresses that's in this top 5. So let's get going. So if I had to go with the number 5 spot, who gets the number 5 spot as far as the Queen of Screams? If I had to go with a decision, I would choose out of 2 actresses. And it could be with these 2, it could be vice versa. One could be the 5th spot and the other one could be the 4th spot. Okay? So, but if I had to make a choice, I would give the 5th spot to Mrs. Neve Campbell. The 5th spot goes to Mrs. Neve Campbell. Neve Campbell comes in 5th place when we're talking about the Queen of Screams, okay? Now let's not get it correct, and let's get it correct, and let's not get it misunderstood. That Mrs. Neve Campbell is a beast. She's a major, huge banger, okay? She was one of the main significant importances of the Scream franchise, okay? And the Scream franchise was an amazing franchise that did a hell of a job. And may I add again, Mrs. Neve Campbell did a hell of a job. So this is no hatred towards her. But as I told you guys, my criteria that I'm basing on, okay? So now we know that Mrs. Neve Campbell goes at number 5, okay? Now Neve Campbell, her presence, okay, she gave a good presence. The way she put herself into the character and made us believe the character of Sidney Prescott. It was a hell of a job, okay? It was an amazing job. And not only that, another film that she was in, The Craft, okay? She did a hell of a job in The Craft with the film with all of the witches, the teenage witches. That was a banger, okay? Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, that's available on Netflix, and also I believe they have a series of it. It's on Netflix as well, okay? Also, Wild Things. Mrs. Neve Campbell, she was in Wild Things, okay? That movie was a good movie too. She did a pretty decent job, okay? It was not one of her best works, but it was a pretty decent job. So that was a banger too, okay? So, but when we're talking about those 3 criteria, I have to put her in 5th place. And as I told you guys, arguably she could be the 4th spot. My top 3 is solid. There's no question about it. The top 3 is solid. But between the 4th and 5th place, these 2 could be vice versa. Who gets the 4th spot for Queen of Screams? The 4th spot of Queen of Screams goes to Mrs. Vera Fermiga, okay? If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But Mrs. Vera Fermiga from the Conjuring franchise. May I add, was a hell of a franchise. That was a good franchise, and it's still going and it's living up to the expectations. Every film was very good, and it was very good put together and orchestrated, and it was a hell of a job by the actress and the actor, okay? Because there was a lead actor and a lead actress in this film, The Conjuring, but that was a hell of a franchise, and Mrs. Vera Fermiga did a hell of a job. Vera did a hell of a job. And like I said, between her and Neve Campbell, it could be vice versa. It could switch around between 4th and 5th spot. The reason why I gave Vera the upper hand advantage of Mrs. Neve Campbell, because I was going to put Neve Campbell at the 4th spot, but I gave Vera Fermiga a little boost up over Neve Campbell because of the fact the vocals. Mrs. Vera has more vocals than Neve Campbell, okay? We're talking about them screams. It's just straight flat out, okay? Now, I know some of you are major, huge fans of Neve Campbell, and I understand you guys. Like I said, Neve Campbell is a beast. She's a banger. But there's no way you can give me a politically debate, give me an intellectual debate to prove that Mrs. Neve Campbell is a better screamer, has better vocals than Vera. There's no possible way. I just don't see that. But you're more than likely. Spam in the comments. If you have some suggestions or you have some theories, spam in the comments and let me know. I'm very interested to know. But that's the only reason why I put Vera at the 4th spot and put Neve Campbell in the 5th spot, because Neve Campbell was going to get the 4th spot originally and Vera was going to get the 5th spot. But when I thought about it, that Vera has had a good success with the Conjuring franchise, and she's also been in other projects where she's done a hell of a job, and this is why I put her, said okay in that part. So, but also her presence was good, but also I took in consideration the vocals, and her vocals are better than Neve Campbell, so this is why I gave her the upper advantage. So Vera comes in the 4th spot. So we have Neve Campbell coming in the 5th spot, and we have Vera Fermiga coming in at the 4th spot. Now we're going to get into the real juicy part. The final three. Who's going to get the 3rd spot? Who's going to get the 2nd spot? And who's going to get the 1st spot? So let's get into this. Coming in at number 3, we're talking about Queen of Screams. The 3rd ranked actress for the title of Queen of Screams goes to Mrs. Heather Langenkamp. Once again, Mrs. Heather Langenkamp. Mrs. Heather Langenkamp comes in at the 3rd spot on my list, and also this is very tricky too, because this one is very controversial, just as the Vera and Neve Campbell. But the 3rd spot and the 2nd spot on my list also is very, very controversial and arguable as well, but I will get into that in a minute. But let me finish on with this 3rd spot. Now the 3rd spot goes to Heather Langenkamp. You guys that don't know Heather Langenkamp is very largely known for the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, ladies and gentlemen. Man, I don't need to say it. Do I even need to say it? Mrs. Heather Langenkamp did a hell of a job on that Nightmare Elm Street franchise, okay? And we're talking about Queen of Screams. We're talking about the screams. Man, she has it. She has the vocals. It's there. She had it. She's in the top 3. She's a beast when it comes to those vocals, when it comes to those screams. So I had to have her on this top 10 list, and she comes in the 3rd spot, okay? She had a hell of a success with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. She's also been in other films as well. But compared to the 2nd spot and the 3rd spot, this is going to play a huge factor in the reason why Heather Langenkamp gets the 3rd spot on the top 10 list and not the 2nd spot on this top 10 list of Queen of Screams. Coming in number 2, the runner up to the 1st spot. Coming in number 2 is Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt. Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt comes in at the number 2 spot on the top 10 list of Queen of Screams. And I know it already. I can tell you guys like, huh? What, MJ? Are you putting Jennifer Love Hewitt above Heather Langenkamp? Yes, I am. Because we're going to get into that right now, while I told you guys what separated Jennifer Love Hewitt and Heather Langenkamp from being vice versa, from Jennifer Love Hewitt being in the 3rd spot and Heather Langenkamp being in the 2nd spot. Because when we're talking about screams, as I told you guys, the vocals, the top 3 females on this list, none of the other women on the list can mess with these top 3 when it comes to the vocals, okay? That's for number 1, but there are also other things that to be taken into consideration. But the top 3 women on this list, none of the other women on this list can compare to them when we're talking about the Queen of Screams, and we're talking about these screams, and we're talking about that overall, just in general, to these horror, thriller, slasher, and suspense mystery films. Now, the reason why Jennifer Love Hewitt gets the 2nd spot and Heather Langenkamp gets the 3rd spot is because Jennifer Love Hewitt has had an amazing career, a hell of a successful career and she has done a hell of a job on and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer franchise. She's also did a hell of a job on other franchises, such as the television series Ghost Whispers, also the television series The Client. Okay, I believe both of these series, teleplay series, were on, what was it, Lifetime? Also, Jennifer Love Hewitt has a huge acolyte, a list of projects and words that was bangers, okay? For those of you guys that don't know, she was in a sitcom, a humorous slapstick movie called Go, okay? This came out in the 90s. It was called Go. Also, she was in a movie that was also a banger. It was more for certain ages groups, but it was called House Arrest. This was another comedy film. It was called House Arrest. It was where a group of children, they had locked all their parents in the basement, or it was some type of gathering, and different parents came all together that knew each other, grew up with each other, and all their children, knew each other by affiliation. And I think just things got out of hand, and the children locked their parents in the basement for a long time, and it got to the point where the kids had even got arrested, but in the end, everything turned out good. But Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt played a hell of a job in this film as well. And that was a hell of a film as well, may I add. And also, may I add, she actually did the soundtracks to the damn movie, okay? Now, there's a lot of things, like I said, been taken into consideration. Also, I can't exclude, also, she was on the Boy Meets World franchise. She appeared on an episode on there where they were in college, okay? You remember where some of the people were getting picked off and getting killed, and Corey and Sean was trying to solve the case. You guys know what I'm talking about, but she appeared on there, and they gave us a bit of taste of her vocals on there. She did a hell of a job. Also, she was on the franchise Party of Five, okay? So she has a huge acolytes of workings of succession and dominant presence, okay? Dominant stage presence, ladies and gentlemen. And it's just a hell of a job. And this is why I gave her the overall jumping boost on Mrs. Heather Langenkamp, because as I said, Mrs. Heather Langenkamp is a hell of, when we're talking about Queen of Screams, she has to be in the top 3, arguably in the second spot, arguably and debatable in the second spot, but because of the person that I put above her, Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt has had an overall better successful career and the overall presence on certain films when it has to do it and relate to any type of horror, mystery, thriller, suspense, mystery, things like that, etc. Hell of a job. And Mrs. Heather Langenkamp, when we look at her career, besides A Nightmare on Elm Street, Mrs. Heather Langenkamp wasn't really known for no major projects, or wasn't no major bangers or no huge bangers, okay? I'm just sorry to say it. It's kind of like she just basically pretty much disappeared, vanished. I mean, sometimes this happens. Sometimes this happens in the industry. I want to take a second, so excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the winner of this of the top ranked list. I want to go in a minute and let you guys and talk with you guys and see what you got, if you guys understand this. Do you realize that a lot of times when actresses and actors, when they start off or when they get involved in certain projects relating to film, television, do you realize that when it has to do pertain to the specific genre of horror, suspense, thrillers, slashers, things like that, that it's hard for them to a lot of times it's hard to transfer that same energy onto different projects outside of that specific genre. Some people are just maybe have a good or okay presence when it comes to that specific genre of horror, slasher, thriller, suspense, and mysteries, etc., things like that. And so I believe this was the case with Heather Langenkamp, because honestly, she doesn't have a huge acolyte. All we know majorly of her is A Nightmare on Elm Street, and this is the reason why I gave Jennifer Love Hewitt the upper hand on her. But when we're talking about the vocals, Jennifer Love Hewitt and Heather Langenkamp, when we're talking about the vocals, they both are very excellent when it came to them screams. They were very excellent. So that was how I went between the difference between the third and second place. So now we're going to go in and get ready to wrap this segment up. We're going to go into the number one spot. Who gets the title? Who reigns supreme? We're talking about Queen of Screams. The number one, the Don Dada. Without any further ado, the number one on the list and the winner of the title of Queen of Screams goes to Mrs. Jamie Lee Curtis. Undisputably, non-refutable, Mrs. Jamie Lee Curtis holds the title and reigns arguably still reigns as the Queen of Screams, ladies and gentlemen. Straight flat out. Mrs. Jamie Lee Curtis comes in the winner spot at number 1 at the top of the list of Queen of Screams. Now, as I stated, none of the other women in both of these segments, none of the other women in this top 10 list can compare to Jamie Lee Curtis on that stage when it's time to go, when that green light clicks. None of these women on this list can compare to Jamie Lee Curtis when it comes to overall the basis that I base, the vocals, the stage presence, and the overall career. There is only one on this list that I can think that comes as close to Jamie Lee Curtis as possible than any of these other runner-ups and candidates. And that's the woman that came in second place is Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt. And may I add that both of these females have had almost, you could say, arguably the same type of career, or you could say that Jennifer Love Hewitt in some kind of way mimicked Jamie Lee Curtis' career and overall success. None of these women, other women on this list, can compare overall in general to Jamie Lee Curtis, except for coming in the number 2 spot, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and then the 3rd spot, Mrs. Heather Langenkamp. But overall, Jamie Lee Curtis comes in number 1. Man, this woman has done an amazing job, okay? A hell of an amazing job. She's been in multiple franchises when we're talking about the horror, thriller, suspense, mystery, etc. She's done a hell of a job in all of those films that she's been in. She's been in multiple projects when it relates and pertains to this specific genre. She's majorly known she's done a hell of a job in the Halloween franchise. I'm sorry, I was about to say majorly known, but she's majorly known for a lot of projects, even outside of this particular genre. But she did a hell of a job in the Halloween franchise, ladies and gentlemen. Had an overall A++ success in the Halloween franchise. She did a hell of a job. For those of you guys that don't know, she did a hell of a job. She's the original Don Dada from the Prom Night franchise, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Mrs. Jamie Lee Curtis did a hell of a job in the Prom Night series, okay? The Prom Night franchise. For those of you guys, I know a lot of you guys may not know, but yes, Mrs. Jamie Lee Curtis, Prom Night, ladies and gentlemen, hell of a job, okay? She was in other films like such as mystery and suspense, like even before these films that I named, Halloween or Prom Night, even before they even came out, way before they came out. She'd been in the business for a minute, and she's done a hell of a job on all type of films pertaining to this specific genre. Then outside of this specific genre, she has done a hell of a job, an amazing job in everything that she's touched, and she's made gold and platinum out of it. And I just think I think that she goes as number 1. And the only person, when I look at Mrs. Jamie Lee Curtis' career overall and her success, the only person that I can see come close to her is Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt. That's why I said Mrs. Jennifer Love Hewitt mimics in a sort of way Jamie Lee Curtis. This is what you see when you think of Jamie Lee Curtis. If you're talking about in the new era, in that late 90s and up, you would look at and it would have to be Jamie Lee Curtis, okay? Because I know arguably it's a controversial topic. I know a lot of people that versus battle, and may I add, I will be dropping the upload on that too, but that Jennifer Love Hewitt versus Neve Campbell. But I'm just being honest and straight, vivid, and be blunt, ladies and gentlemen. There is no comparison when we talking about Jennifer Love Hewitt compared to Neve Campbell. It is not a comparison. Neve Campbell does not compare no way whatsoever to Jennifer Love Hewitt overall, straight flat out. But as getting on to the end of this segment, as I stated just a few minutes ago, that no one comes close to Jamie Lee Curtis other than Jennifer Love Hewitt. And this is why I'm giving Jamie Lee Curtis, I gave Jamie Lee Curtis the number 1 spot, and I gave Jennifer Love Hewitt the 2nd spot, compared to giving her the 3rd spot and giving Heather Langenkamp the 2nd spot, because Jennifer Love Hewitt has had a overall better rating and overall better success in general, and at the same vocals as far as we're talking about Heather Langenkamp and Jamie Lee Curtis. As I said, when we're talking about just vocals, all 3 of these women in the top 3, all of them, I would consider their vocals right here, right by each other, just evened out, straight flat out. And so that's all I have to say about that, okay, you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this 2-part segment. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting in the effort to just come up with this, this little top 10 list, because I don't really, I've heard it a couple times being discussed, but I don't think the way I went in the direction, the way I went with we're talking about the top 10 Queen of Screams, okay? I think that I just did, the way I went with it, I gave it a good mode, and I gave a good satisfaction overall as far as how I went with the list, and I was being basically non-biased, and I went in it good. But I hope you guys enjoyed it.